So my name is Greg Delaune. I am CEO and co-founder of the Urban Innovation Exchange. Some of you may have had the chance. How about that? There we go. Some of you may have had the chance to meet my irrepressible co-founder, James Hanusa, who also works with Digital Rain. So it's really been great to have him here and to get to know all of you. Been learning a tremendous amount just from the discussions I've had with people, and it's also been a tremendous honor to share the stage with our speakers and experts in each of their fields. So what I'm going to be talking about is public-private partnerships and the idea of innovation ecosystems. And that's what UIX Global focuses on and specializes in. And in particular, we focus on the opportunity to work with offices of innovation at the municipal scale and chief innovation officers who are leading those public sector innovation offices. We really see the scale of municipal government as a very effective and strategic scale to be working with communities and with economic development efforts, in particular because at that municipal scale, and some of the other speakers have talked about this, some of our political differences start to melt away. So at that city scale, at that community scale, we can all agree on good schools, good roads, good services and all that, and political parties really start to melt away. It's when we get to that higher level that really the state level, the federal level, where agencies and services have a tendency to become more about regulation, so creating obstacles rather than facilitating better governance at the local level.
We're digging for the presentation. Someone's in the back.
I thought I just saw it come up.
Did you?
Oh.
Point it out to me and we'll be right there. Oh, flash drive's gone now. Once you connect it, you'll see it.
All right, well, maybe I'll continue a little bit with introduction. So another hat that I wear is I'm the technical partnerships lead for Blue Frontiers and for the Seasteading Institute, and am very proud to be part of the founding team that went to French Polynesia at the invitation of Mark Collins, and is now moving forward with that project. So as you may have already heard, we signed an MOU with the French Polynesian government in January of 2017. We just received news of a positive election result for the incumbent government, which has been a big supporter of the project, and now we're moving forward such that within a couple of months now we could already be identifying our actual final site, and theoretically we can even have boots on the ground for the location, the land-based location of the project by the end of the year. And we're still hoping to have the phase one completed by the end of 2021, and that would be about a dozen platforms and a population of about 200 to 250. So UIX Global, we call ourselves the remover of obstacles when we're working with cities, because that's what a lot of these regulations and existing conditions are producing, is a set of obstacles. And in the case of Puerto Rico, again, we want to be looking at how these public-private partnerships can help us develop resilient communities and develop these innovation ecosystems. This happens to be a picture of some Johns Hopkins students from Puerto Rico who, post-Maria, had a bake sale and managed to raise $5,000 to help with the efforts in Puerto Rico. So much of what I'm going to be talking about is opportunities to reach out to that Puerto Rican diaspora and also to young Puerto Ricans who are starting their businesses. So I was really inspired by what Denise and Annie and the other folks from Puerto Rico have been talking about in terms of how they are already cultivating and growing this innovation ecosystem and bringing in the resources to help with moving forward. So I already talked a little bit about what we do at UIX Global, and in general, what we're aiming to do is to help cities become greener, cleaner, and smarter, but also more creative. So we work a lot with creative culture, and I'll talk a little bit about some of the examples that we work with in various communities. So we talk a lot about resilient communities, and we have what we call a Resilient Communities Roadmap, which is really to get to some new ideas around what cities can be, maker cities, smart cities, greener, cleaner cities. And a lot of that has to do with technology, but a lot of it just has to do with innovation, innovative thinking and the creation of these innovation ecosystems through various ideas around small business development, civic policy, and corporate finance methods. These start with these public-private partnerships and civic cooperation that really has to be localized, working with the local culture, locally value-based, activity-oriented, with getting people together for discussions and for cooperation, and culture-driven, such that you're not bringing in a foreign culture, foreign corporations that are not responding to what the local population is interested in. And fundamentally, this roadmap is about community engagement, moving towards strategic implementation of appropriate technologies. Those technologies may be soft or cultural technologies, or they could be harder or more mathematical technologies if we're talking about blockchain and other sorts of green and clean technologies. So in the case of French Polynesia, working with Blue Frontiers and with the Seasteading Institute, we have the good fortune to be working with, partnering with a very enlightened government. And they're seeing the opportunities, and this is really the basis of that public-private partnership. When a local government, thanks to people like Mark Collins, can understand, be convinced, get excited about the idea of what a public-private partnership can do for them, if in the case of French Polynesia, they're willing to negotiate with our level of autonomy, and we in return are bringing a set of benefits to their community, to their economy, to their government, and in the form of technologies and talent, much of which is in this room in terms of what we could do to bring value to French Polynesia. So this was one of the demonstrations in Washington, D.C. I think it was about 10 weeks after Maria. And as we've been hearing today, in all kinds of ways, including the Jones Act, Puerto Rico is being strangled. There's a set of conditions that is really making it difficult for Puerto Rico just to participate and compete on a level playing field with other economies. And hopefully what will come out of this conference, and what I'm hoping to suggest, is a number of activities and a number of initiatives that could help level that playing field and move forward. So what we see as the opportunity is where these three zones overlap. So what is the current civic policy? How can we work with that? How can we build this entrepreneur ecosystem? And how can we bring in private sector business investment and leadership, and through that create business attraction, tech transfer or tech development, and then development initiatives that can address the needs of the local population and the local economy. At the center of all this is those public-private partnerships and civic cooperation that then can facilitate these other activities, like bringing in creative culture, social ventures and impact investing, cultivating smart cities and green cities, growth of the shared economy and co-working models, and entrepreneurship, small business support, and then things like form-based planning and design, which touches on architectural and urban design concepts. And really, these are certainly not exclusive. I happen to have 7 up there, but there's other sorts of initiatives that can be supported through these public-private partnerships. And all through all this, really thinking more about cities and about communities as living systems, how the environment and how the local culture and identity and branding, all those can come together around cultivating this living ecosystem that is going to help benefit local communities. In the Bay Area, we have a particularly interesting ecosystem, and the innovation going on there is based on a series of realities that have come out of Silicon Valley, but also out of phenomena like Burning Man. So the global networking and technology development that's going on in the area, the creative culture that's coming from various areas like Burning Man and other creative outlets in the Bay Area, and then environmental protection and environmental awareness that is particularly strong in that environment. And there's the opportunity to, in that ecosystem, to create lots of interesting partnerships, but there's also the opportunity to export those partnerships, to export and share that network. And at UX Global, that's really fundamentally one of our missions, is to reach out to other parts of the country, other parts of the world, to share those resources with other communities. So one of the organizations that I've worked with a lot is the Clean Tech Open, and they were part of a partnership with the federal government, the U.S. Department of Energy, to create the Clean Energy Ministerial, which happened in downtown San Francisco a couple years ago, and that was showcasing green and clean technologies from all over the world. and creating a leadership for the Bay Area and for those folks that participated. Another great example I like to cite in the Bay Area is Prospect Silicon Valley, which is a City of San Jose joint venture and public-private partnership focused on incubation and acceleration of technologies, particularly related to transportation. So this was one of the first places where on the city streets of San Jose you were actually able to test some of the automated transportation, automated vehicle technology, the signaling technology that would integrate with that. And now we're hearing a lot about those testing, but a while ago, no city wanted to be the first city that was actually taking on that liability and providing those areas for testing. So Prospect Silicon Valley has really done some amazing work. This project for Advanced Energy Communities Initiatives is from the city of San Leandro, which I'll talk more about, but that was a public-private partnership with OSI Soft and the city, local developer, to look at bringing smart grid technology in the context of community choice aggregation, which is a new model where local communities can choose their energy provider, and through that choice, they can choose renewable energy over fossil fuels as their, so to speak, portfolio of energy supply. So UIX Global is seeking to cultivate these relationships and bring those partnerships and relationships to bear for whatever the problem at hand is. And that was one of the opportunities that we see with working with Blue Frontiers and the Seasteading Institute in French Polynesia to really activate that ecosystem there and to create these partnerships around our common goals. So, as you've heard a little bit about with Seasteading, we have an opportunity to create a comprehensive market response to climate change and sea level rise through the concept of tripling global human habitat development potential by moving out onto the oceans in a sustainable and clean way. So, with the development of our, so to speak, product and ultimate solution sets that will be these floating platforms, they are mitigation tools for sea level rise impact, for sea level rise refugee relocation, for infrastructure resilience in the form of being able to float infrastructure near coastal cities that are in need of that infrastructure and not cause a lot of stranded assets through either damaged infrastructure with sea level rise, but also outdated infrastructure that is very difficult to get rid of. So in the case of Polynesia, they've already established some leadership, global leadership in terms of climate change, and the idea is to work with them to create next generation energy, water, and waste technologies, and then also prototyping technologies that together we can market around the world, and in so doing create this Polynesian innovation ecosystem for these sorts of technologies. In the course of that, we want to make sure that we're diversifying the French Polynesian economy, which right now is very focused on tourism, and these are some of the partners that potentially we can bring to bear for that in terms of culture and history and ideas of regenerative design. There's opportunities to work with the French Polynesians on that, and they're really already thinking about a lot of those ideas. And again, to promote these clean and green technologies with accelerators and incubators, including PRISM, which is already, that's a French Polynesian accelerator. But if we can partner them with other established and celebrated organizations that can act as their partners, then we really can extend that network. And ultimately to create opportunities for young entrepreneurs and through education and training programs through some of these projects that we'll work with. So what we're going to be doing is creating customized site-specific designs that are responding to all of the environmental factors in French Polynesia, but then also in the other locations that they would be customized. Ocean ecosystem stewardship, protecting the local coral reefs, which we're extremely committed to in the case of French Polynesia, and moving forward for other models. Prototyping seastead development for global energy, water, waste treatment, food security. So these platforms that will have all of these integrated systems within them that can then be marketed to other parts of the world. And exchange and learning and partnership with the thriving Polynesian culture, which has been tremendous to interact with them. And we're really learning a lot from the way they've been living for hundreds of years and how we can expand these ideas together. So ultimately, again, with French Polynesia to create this global leadership and sustainable economic development that can be effective for other island nations, other coastal areas, and other people that are facing climate change displacement. So now I'm going to talk about another example in the Bay Area with the city of San Leandro, which is UX Global's flagship client, and has really shown a lot of leadership, both as a city, but then also individually. A woman named Debbie Acosta, who's their Chief Innovation Officer, who was hired as part of a public-private partnership for bringing in a fiber optic network. So the fiber optic network was the backbone of this building a smart ecosystem that then, as the base of the stack of technologies and initiatives that happen in San Leandro, everything was built on that information highway, that information network that then facilitated other aspects of investment related to energy and other things. And in terms of what we were doing was supporting the city with events and conferences and rapid prototyping ideas to support the Chief Innovation Officer moving forward. So again, the backbone of this was really about the data system, started with a grant and then working with a local business owner that completely financed 100% a $3 to $6 million upgrade of fiber in the city. And on the backbone of that fiber, they did other projects related to power, including some smart lighting projects. There's a place called the Zero Net Energy Center, which was the first zero net energy retrofit building in the country, and is now an academy for training journeyman electricians to install and maintain those systems. So that's a real leadership opportunity for that community, and in fact, again, something that we want to bring to French Polynesia in form of a partnership. And then a lot of education initiatives. So as part of the public-private partnership, that 30 strands of the 100 strands of fiber were provided to the city and were used to connect the local schools, the local cultural centers, and key properties that also then supported things like an advanced manufacturing hub. So all of a sudden, San Leandro became this center of 3D printing and advanced manufacturing, and a whole series of companies in that cluster with supporting technologies. All of a sudden, San Leandro was on the map, and they started moving there, and that was a big success. And I mentioned creative culture. This was a project to bring a 65-foot tall sculpture of a woman standing on her tippy toes with a stainless steel skin and 3,000 fully programmable LEDs underneath that skin to a transit-oriented development project, tech campus right near the downtown. And that now has not only become the center of the technology movement in San Leandro, but this artist's work, his name is Marco Cochran, his 3-series sculpture project called the Bliss Dance Project is about women's safety and women's empowerment. So this is very interesting because now you've got a woman chief innovation officer, a woman developer who was involved with this, a woman named Gay Quinn, and this project that has the potential to turn San Leandro into a mecca for the top Bay Area women's tech talent. So that in itself is a whole little economic development opportunity, but also really important in terms of a lot of the discussions that are going on at the national level. So I won't go into the detail of this because we're short on time, but these are some of the things that San Leandro is looking at in the future in terms of how to leverage all of the success they've had. And these are really things that all of these are things that we can look at in terms of Puerto Rico, in terms of greater alignment with IT, a fiber master plan or IT master plan. Debbie's actually now leaving the city as the CIO and is going to be starting a women's accelerator in San Leandro. So again, reinforcing that local identity and local culture. So how do we use all this to invest in the future of Puerto Rico and the diaspora that's all over the country and all over the world? Well, I was really inspired by what Annie had to say and what Denise and her crew are working on. And the idea is that there is no future in rebuilding the past, and our people are more resilient than our infrastructure. Well, I'm hoping that we can get the infrastructure to catch up with the people through some of these opportunities. So we have 78 municipalities, and there's an opportunity to bring in 78 chief innovation officers to network those chief innovation officers, give them the resources they need, and to support projects like Jaime's working on, tremendous project that if that could be replicated all over the island, and for that matter to be copied by other parts of the world, then that would be a really amazing outcome. There's already, just recently in the last few weeks, $270 million from the FCC has finally been green-lighted to invest in broadband in Puerto Rico. With the 5G potential that is coming online within the next few years, we could build a fiber or broadband skeleton copper network in Puerto Rico that with 5G could reach the entire island. So just imagine from all the stories that we've heard, if everybody woke up the day after Maria and they were fully connected because the copper was underground and their 5G phone and computer was ready to go, and with 5G, you don't need to be, that last mile goes away. So you'll be able to do everything you do on your computer with 5G, and we're looking at that within 3 years. So let's not look at the past and rebuild old infrastructure. Let's be the cutting edge of new infrastructure. We can bring green technology leadership not only for Puerto Rico, but Puerto Rico as a leader for the Caribbean and other island states, supporting organizations like Solar Heads of State, Build Back Aruba. They're all looking for partners to come up with better models and more resilient models. Economic diversification of Puerto Rico. What we heard of yesterday, 70 to 8% of Puerto Rican graduates are leaving the island. With these initiatives, we can create new industries and bring those folks back. And then with this data, with this information network, we can upgrade education and training programs through these public-private partnership initiatives. And then also with events and all the great culture that already exists in Puerto Rico, make that another center of excellence where people are coming around from around the world, not just to be tourists, but also to be participating in other sorts of interesting initiatives on Puerto Rico. So thank you very much. I don't know if we have any time for a question or two, but again, it's a pleasure to be here, and I look forward to following up with my colleagues. Two questions. And I'm sorry I went so fast, but I was trying to cover a lot.
So there was a proposal kind of stillborn out of the White House a few months ago to roll out 5G as sort of a centralized, trying to get at least 100 megabits per chunks of bandwidth in order to give you enough throughput to get, are you able to get 100 megahertz of contiguous bandwidth in Puerto Rico?
Well, I certainly can't comment on what the current bandwidths are. Anytime stillbirth and the White House are in the same sentence, I would hesitate to comment anyway. But the information I'm getting on that is from a colleague who's working with an organization that is looking to revolutionize 5G and is buying up various bandwidths on the FM band on VHS, and to completely rethink how those bandwidths are being distributed. And what he was telling me was that in the case of Puerto Rico, there's just tremendous opportunities. But again, we're talking about 3 to 5 years. So this is not necessarily immediate right now. Another question? All right. Thank you very much.